Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode on the show, Control or Be Controlled, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. I remain your host, Darlington. Today's guest is Chris Rogers. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Like I said, I really appreciate being here.
All right, Chris, I would like you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Yeah, sure. My name is Chris Rogers. I am from Long Island, New York, here in the United States, and I am the head coach of two programs that I absolutely love and am so proud of sharing and I'm excited to talk about. The first of which is the Rebooted Teen program, and the second of which is the Rebooted Teen Parent program. And, in these programs, we talk about internet safety and internet addiction, particularly in the world of pornography. And just the word pornography, I'm sure, could make some people feel a little uncomfortable, a little awkward, but that's why these programs exist. We want to make sure that all those who feel that they're struggling with these types of behaviors have the help that they need. And if a parent or guardian has a child that they believe is struggling with an unhealthy behavior, they have the tools that they find helpful to make sure that conversations around the internet, around pornography, they're not led with shame and they're not, anywhere near uncomfortable. We want to make sure that everybody that might have some sort of relationship with irresponsibility with the internet is as well equipped as possible.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. So, can you tell us what first inspired your passion for educating and mentoring young people?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the first decade of my professional career, I had been working as a teacher in New York City. I was a music teacher for a long time. But behind closed doors, I'll be honest with you, I was really struggling with an out of control behavior, especially in the world of pornography. And just to make a long story short, I would present myself in a certain way in front of people, but behind closed doors, it was a very different type of lifestyle. I was coping with stress and overwhelm in an unhealthy way. And it all started, when I was about 14 years old and really followed me well into my 20s. But all while working as a teacher, I found this program that really met me where I was at and gave me the skills and tools that I needed to have a healthier relationship with myself, and do away with types of behaviors that had proven to be unhealthy for me. And when I made the change to really take what I've learned to help somebody else, I really didn't look back. I've been doing this professionally now for about 4 full years after teaching for about 10. So as far as this demographic and this generation that we're talking about, I've really gotten to know this community intimately, and I've really gotten the chance to work with them one-on-one and really get to know their own specific struggles and anxieties and troubles. And through my experience as both an educator and as someone who's been in their shoes as far as someone who struggled with this behavior, I really do feel uniquely qualified to be able to speak to this generation, particularly if they're having a history of unhealthy behaviors themselves. So that's a little bit of what I do and where I come from.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. So, why do you believe today's students face challenges that previous generations never had to navigate?
Well, I feel like these obstacles, when it comes to the level of accessibility, gone are the days of, just being able to walk around without depending on having a smartphone in your pocket. It's hard enough as adults for, the temptation of, not looking on your phone. It's very, very common for, an older person to perhaps have an unhealthy relationship with technology today. But it's another thing altogether when you're spending your formative years in the age of social media, in the age of excessive stimulation, especially, when we're kind of using iPads as pacifiers, like it's just a series of circumstances that we in an older generation might not be able to directly relate to. So it's really, really important to have conversations about internet safety early, just because we're dealing with a generation that doesn't know what life is like before social media. We're talking about a generation that is being exposed to the internet and particularly pornography at a younger and younger age. So, really, what we're trying to do through the Rebooted Teen program is dispel a lot of myths, but really just bring about just a sense of togetherness, just in the sense of anybody who feels that they're struggling or has questions about a particular behavior, they're not alone, and we are not leading with shame. We're leading with compassion and having a young person follow a system. That's really what it's all about.
Chris, what do you mean by iPad has become pacifiers?
It's funny because, sometimes I'll go over to a relative's house or a friend's house and they'll have their child as young as 2 be on an iPad. And it kind of blows my mind considering how I know how, access to this type of technology affects the brain. But to be able to be so used to that immediate gratification before your brain is fully developed has proven to be nothing but unhealthy, both for your sense of presence, both for your overall sense of self, and just your overall experience in the world. When you're so used to getting what you want as soon as you want it, before you're able to walk on your own or speak on your own, I just don't see that being a healthy thing. But excessive exposure to smartphones and iPads at earlier and earlier ages, it's no wonder that the age in which children are exposed to pornography is getting younger and younger. So what we do through these types of programs, like I said, is just open up conversations about what's out there, what to be aware of, and ultimately how people can make decisions based on their values and not just their impulses. But if we are kind of training them to only follow their impulses, which is something that really giving iPads to young children kind of trains them to do, like I said, it's just the world that we live in. It's the culture that we've built for them. We're talking about a generation that is more stimulated than ever and more anxious than ever. But what's also important to remember is that it's not 100% their fault. There's just the world that they live in, And again, whether it is about internet addiction, screen addiction, or if they find themselves in an unhealthy relationship with something like pornography, those are the type of people that the Rebooted Teen program is for.
What you are building is very, very incredible, I must say. Honestly, it's very, very, very incredible. So, what are the challenges that you have faced so far? I know there are some stumbling blocks you have had so far for building the what you are building. So, can you share with us?
As far as stumbling blocks when it comes to working with a young person today?
Yes.
Well, one stumbling block that I notice a lot of people in my generation or older might run into is leading well-intentioned conversations with the phrase, "when I was your age." And the reason why I call that a stumbling block is because in many ways, it's not the same world that we grew up in. It's not the same culture that we grew up with. It's not the same level of technology that we grew up with. It truly is a different ballgame in many regards. So understanding that, yes, we may have been in their shoes as far as maybe feeling confused or overwhelmed or anxious, but the level at which this generation feels it, statistically speaking, simply exceeds what we in an older generation may have grown up with ourselves, So the name of the game is just simply curiosity, meaning like one thing that I teach to my clients all the time when it comes to the world of addiction or compulsive behaviors. It's not the thing, it's the place from which it's coming from. What I mean by that is just really getting curious about, you know, where are behaviors coming from? Meaning, what are we trying to medicate? What are we trying to suppress? Or what are we trying to move away from? These are the things that we're trying to make the target. It's not just about the behavior itself, meaning it's not just about our inability to put the phone down. It's not just about the pornography itself. It's the place within that we are trying to numb, getting curious about that. One other stumbling block that I notice parents and guardians falling into is leading some of these conversations with shame. So let's say somebody catches their child or highly suspects that their child is watching pornography. It's very, very common, and man, I hear this all the time. Parents kind of falling into leading these conversations with shame. Like, oh my gosh, like this isn't how I raised you. How could you watch this disgusting stuff? You know what I mean? Like, who do you think you are watching this type of stuff? And all the child is going to hear is this stuff is disgusting. And yet, for one reason or another, this type of material has provided them with something, whether it's a sense of like they're not alone in the feelings that they're feeling, whether it's a sense of excitement, whether it's a sense of piqued curiosity, whatever it is. But when all they hear is that this is bad, how could you do this? All a child is going to hear and feel is, well, this type of behavior makes me feel good, but mom or dad says that this is bad. So therefore, I must be bad. Therefore instills that sense of guilt and shame. So what a child learns to do because of that is create what's called a hide and lie dynamic. So if there is something that you might have been ashamed of when you were a kid, you might not tell your parents outright. You'll keep it a secret. You'll hide it. You'll have your own secret stash. You just won't talk about it. You won't tell anybody. You keep it a secret. You hide it. You suppress it. You keep it inside. But truly, the path toward healing is slowly yet surely beginning to open up, beginning to share, beginning to confront what's going on internally to the point where it's affecting you externally. I mean, that's really what recovery is all about, or is what I like to call rebooting. Like just like a computer, right? Like really getting back to factory settings, like getting back to the way you were designed. There's a lot to dive into there, but again, just some of the basic stumbling blocks that I notice clients falling into is either leading these types of conversations with shame and guilt tripping, but also just kind of seeing things on a two-dimensional level. Because again, one of the biggest things that I learned in my own recovery process, and one thing that I try to share with my clients, it's not just the thing, meaning it's not just the behavior, it's the place inside you that behavior is coming from. And the more you allow yourself to get curious about what that thing internally is, the more of a likelihood you'll have in actually having it healed. So that's really what the process is all about.
Okay, so this process is only for young people, right?
So it's primarily for young people, absolutely right. The Rebooted Teen program is dedicated to helping those within their middle school to high school age. So I would say about anywhere between the ages of 13 to 17. But if anybody's listening to this and they have a child who they fear, again, like I said, might be acting out in a sexually compulsive way, or you just suspect they might have an unhealthy relationship with the internet, particularly pornography. What I've built as well is something called the Rebooted Teen Parents Program. So literally, all a person has to do is go to rebootedteen.com and they'll find the free Rebooted Teen Parent Program, where it's literally me walking a parent through all different tips and tools and techniques to lead your child in discussions about the internet, about sex, about the way their body is growing, without making it awkward, without making it weird, without making it shame based. It's about what can we do to lead the next generation in a way that empowers them instead of encourages them to hide from us. You know what I mean? So the Rebooted Teen program itself is for our young people, but our Rebooted Teen parent program is for anybody who has a young person in their life that they want to equip and help.
Okay, thank you so much. So, all right, moving on. What did your own struggle, and I'm sure all this came from your own struggle, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, what did it teach you about compassion, healing, and lasting change?
Oh, my goodness. So much. Well, I learned many exercises, but not the least of which is something called dialoguing. So some people who might be familiar with certain areas of psychology, they might have heard about this practice called parts work or internal family systems. It has a few different names. But basically, how it works is you see, for example, your addict side, let's call it, your compulsive side, the part of you that brings you toward behaviors that you become addicted to, right? You basically see it as what is commonly called a sub personality. So, what that means is it's a part of you, but it's not the entirety of you. You know, sometimes when you get lost in a particular set of unhealthy behaviors, you see yourself just as that thing. You see yourself just as this unhealthy behavior, someone who's not in control. Like, this is all that I am. But when you learn to separate yourself from this part of you and realize that there's more to you than just that, you have the opportunity to start a dialogue with it. It's kind of like this. Like, let's imagine you work a long day at work, right? And you come home after a long day, you get a chance to sit on your couch or your favorite chair, and you can finally rest. All of a sudden, you hear a knock at the door. So you get up and you open the door, and the person who came to knock at your door is somebody that you don't really like very much. So whoever the first person who just popped into your mind, that's who's at the door right now. Now, in this particular situation, you have two different options. You can either close the door in their face, ugh, get out of here, or you could let them in for a little while and ask why they came to visit you at all. This is what the tool that I like to call dialoguing is all about. It's giving this part of you the chance to express itself. One thing that I learned is that your nervous system is trying to tell you something. An emotion is not out to get you. It's trying to give you information about you. And the more we ignore it, the more we distract ourselves from it, we'll never know what it is that it's trying to tell us. So when you turn an urge into more of a conversation, you have a better chance of getting to know it. But here's the best part of that person in your house example. Once you let this person in your house say what's on their mind and share why they came to visit you, because it's your house, you have the final say to when it's time for them to leave. You take the power back without shaming yourself. You take the power back without beating yourself up, And this is what I love my clients, because so often we'll think that, we need to just hate the behavior enough and that's how we'll get over it, and that's not necessarily the case. We have to understand that this behavior is a symptom for something that's not working inside us. So one major thing that I learned in my journey is how to do that, rather than have my journey be fueled by guilt and shame and just beating myself up, but learning how to love myself in a different way. I know that might sound a little corny, but that's really what the process is. It's learning to, lean on community and learning how to accept certain parts of myself without letting certain parts run my decision making. I can separate myself from my urges without hating myself. There's so much that goes into this, but that's the basic approach. There's so much value at really at any age to learn this overall process. But once you become more familiar with it and once you learn how to do it, there really is no going back. So I feel like if there's any place to start for someone who feels that they might have an unhealthy coping pattern, it really would be that. Give dialoguing a try. You take out a piece of paper and you literally write out that conversation that you would have in your metaphorical house, you know, almost as if you're writing lines to a movie script. So if I were putting pen to paper, I might say something like, like addict Chris would say this, and Chris would say that. You literally go back and forth between you and your addict self. So you literally separate yourself from that compulsive nature. You give it the chance to express itself, but you don't need to follow 100% of what it says. And you get to learn, what does it really want beyond just the behavior itself? Like, why does it want this behavior? What is it trying to feel? What does it feel like it doesn't have that from its perspective, they believe that this behavior is going to give them? You know what I mean? So I know I'm getting excited, but that really is how the process works. And it's why I'm so excited about it.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. This has been so exciting. So, well, if you could leave one message to every young person out there before they leave school, one message I hope every young person hears before they leave school, what would that be?
Every young person simply needs to hear something that might sound very simple, but only because I've had to learn it for myself. So I know that it's true. The truth of the matter is, the more personal something feels, the more universal it actually is. And that's what a young person can discover through the Rebooted Teen program. Other people are going through their same exact struggles. Other people are going through their same exact anxieties or worries or very, very similar situations. I think what a lot of people need if they want to heal is that community that is safe, that's non-judgmental, and is actions oriented. So we're going to talk about what's going on emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, but ultimately it's going to hold us accountable to what are we trying to do about it. You know what I mean? So I think if any young person is listening, it's that, again, you're not alone, but there also is that community. If you feel that's what you need, then let's talk. I am your coach. I am your friend. I'm like your older brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's work. And if there's any parent that's listening, if they feel that their child or a young person in their life is struggling with an out of control behavior, one major thing I want to tell them is that you can't protect a heart that you haven't reached. And what the Rebooted Teen Parent Program is dedicated to is, like I said, learning how to navigate these potentially awkward or uncomfortable conversations without needing to make them uncomfortable or awkward. Like these things that we're talking about when it comes to internet addiction or even diving into worlds like pornography. Like, this stuff exists. And the more we pretend it doesn't or sweep things under the rug, the more the stigma will persist. So it's about doing what we can to make your child's journey to recovery as streamlined, as simple, and as supported as possible. So again, you're not alone. There is community, there is hope, and there is help. And my goal is for the Rebooted Teen program to be that help.
All right, thank you so much, Chris. This has been so exciting. What you are building is very, very purposeful. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing your story and your heart. This conversation reminds us that while technology continues to evolve, our greatest needs remains the same: authentic connection, personal responsibility, and hope. Whether you are a student, a parent, educator, or someone walking your own recovery journey, there's always a forward path. For those that would like to learn more about your work, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, if you'd like to connect with me, you can go to rebootedteen.com for free and instant access to the Rebooted Teen Parent Program. Just to give you an idea of who I am and what to expect from the Rebooted Teen Program, but also just give you an idea of what you as a parent or guardian can start applying today, to engage in these types of conversations in a healthy and meaningful way. But if you like what you see in here, you can see some samples at Rebooted Teen on Instagram and YouTube. But if you are getting a lot of value from the free resources, then I highly recommend you enroll your child into my magnum opus, my baby, the Rebooted Teen program. There's a private Facebook community in which we get to support each other and trade notes and encourage each other. Like I said, there is community and there is hope and there is health and help. And like I said, that's what the Rebooted Teen program is all about. So once again, rebootedteen.com at Rebooted Teen rather on Instagram and YouTube. Once again, my name is Chris Rogers. I am your brother in the struggle and reminding anyone listening that you're not alone. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, Darlington.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you, my audience, as well. You guys are the reason why we are able to do this. Make sure to check out Chris' work and share this episode with somebody who might need to hear this. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, Chris.